Good morning and good afternoon to some of you. We're live from the Precision Ag Vision Conference in Phoenix, Arizona. And welcome to our media panel featuring agricultural credit provider Traive, as well as agribusiness and food company Land O'Lakes. My name is Andrew Mullen. I lead marketing for EarthDaily. And first I'd like to just sort of talk a little bit about the format for today's discussion. We will begin with some opening remarks from our panelists, and then take questions from the media. If you do have questions for our panelists today, please submit them through the online venue, and now or during the event via that online forum, and we will get to as many questions as we can as time allows. Now I'd like to take a minute to introduce our panelists. First, Land O'Lakes Chief Technology Officer, Teddy Bekele, Traive Finance CEO Fabrizio Pezzente, EarthDaily Agro GM Dave Gebhardt, and finally EarthDaily Analytics CEO Don Osborne. I will be stepping into the background, so you will not see me on camera, but you will hear my voice as I will facilitate today's discussion. Now I would like to turn over things to the EarthDaily Analytics CEO, Don Osborne, for some opening remarks, and thank you for your participation today.
Well, welcome, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining us here today. Due to Omicron and getting across borders, I'll be joining you from Vancouver, Canada, where it's nice and balmy here. We're thrilled to be here, and specifically thankful for Teddy and Fabrizio's participation. I'd like to thank them. And we're excited to talk to you today about what's new for EarthDaily Analytics, and specifically some of the problems we're trying to solve. If you go back 40 or 50 years ago and you were trying to take a poll with folks and ask them what the biggest problems that the world was facing, you would have got a lot of answers which were regional in nature. If you were an American, you might have gone back to or talked about the Vietnam War. Words like Middle East would have come up, regional strife, regional famines. Today, if you take that poll, it's very different. You get a set of different answers. You talk about food security, you talk about water optimization, climate change is on everybody's tongue these days, deforestation. These are really the global problems that we're facing, and we're looking for global solutions. That's on top of what are the regional problems which still exist. We believe that by looking at the entire Earth's surface every day and applying change detection and predictive analysis, we can contribute significantly to solving these problems. And today, no such data set exists. So in addition to talking about EarthDaily, we're excited to announce the rebranding of our agricultural division. I think Dave announced that yesterday at the conference. And we're going to launch into a little bit more about what we see as a cornerstone of our company, which is our ag business and what it does. So with that, I'll pass it back to Andrew.
Okay, thanks, Don. Let's begin with sort of a high-level look at Earth observation, satellite technology, and the benefits to the agricultural industry. Dave, would you like to open the conversation on that topic?
Sure. Thank you, Andrew. As Don alluded to in his opening comments, global data sets that scale at very high quality are in high demand, especially in agriculture. We've evolved beyond generating maps, say maps of NDVI or vegetation, and now it's really about math. We've really evolved from maps to math. So, today we provide analytics that help manage the risks of agriculture every day, and I'm very much looking forward to Teddy and Fabrizio sharing some of their experience and how they use our technology to do that. But here's the thing, we've been waiting for this day for 35 years. As Don said again, Geosys, the business, now has become EarthDaily Agro. And today, it's not by coincidence at the Vision Conference, this is today where Vision is now meeting execution to create something that's going to provide very real results. So that's kind of the status of where we're at today. And yeah, I'm looking forward to taking some questions more deeply into our business. So it's very important for us to move this forward.
Thanks, Dave. So Don, there's been some recent announcements from EarthDaily about this planned new constellation. Can you share with us a little bit about kind of what that means and tell us about it a little bit more?
Sure. The constellation is really part of an overall market solution. And that market solution brings together sort of 4 areas which we think are unique in the marketplace today. The first is really high quality. We're talking about global coverage and global analysis here. In order to apply the analysis, you really need to make sure that the data sets you're comparing are accurate in every way, shape, or form. So that really means the data itself has to be processed and produced in a way that's extremely high quality. And that leads you back to where you start with the satellites. So today, our design incorporates very high quality instruments on board a fairly sophisticated satellite, which generates a quality in the pixels themselves. So that means that the pixel is consistent, the pixel geolocation is correct, and the pixel size is consistent across every band and every image. So again, quality is a starting point. Next is high quantity. We are everywhere every day. So we image the entire Earth's landmass, and we keep the data files that are produced every day so we can go backwards in time, again, to look at change detection over a series of time. Next is scalable. Obviously, if you're producing that kind of data, which is almost unheard of in the industry, you need to process it in a different way. You can't have people in the loop. So we've spent 7 years developing an automated processing system which takes the pixels from the satellite, does the quality control, does the calibration, and does that all in an automated fashion. So that means the system is extremely scalable. It also means we can actually deliver the data within 24 hours. And again, that's data for the entire Earth's surface. And then we have more content. We have a super spectral system. We have 23 bands, so we're able to bring information from the visible band, the shortwave infrared, and the thermal bands all together to tell us the most information that we can get at any one point in time about what's beneath us on the Earth. The system itself has 9 satellites, again, capturing virtually the entire Earth's surface. We have 1 orbit spare, which we'll put into service if everything works successfully upon its initial deployment. And the launches are now scheduled for the first 3 go up in mid-23, and the second 6 go up in the latter part of 23. And we've just announced our manufacturing and mission partner, Loft Aerospace, and our payload partners will be announced shortly.
Thanks, Don. So at the Vision Conference, there was 3 big announcements. One was the rebranding of Geosys to EarthDaily Agro. The second was some more substantive information about the new constellation. And third was the launch of the downstream geoanalytics platform, which is now called Geosys. Dave, can you tell me a little bit more about kind of this next generation platform?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Andrew. Listen, so yes, we're announcing today the change of the name of our business from Geosys to EarthDaily Agro, but the Geosys name will still live on. So that will be the name of our new platform. So to be very simple, it's bigger, it's better, and it's faster. So what does that really mean? So we're able to provide the developers and the data scientists that want to work with us much better. We kind of use these words like flexibility, extensibility, and automation. And if you're like me, well, what does that mean? Okay, flexibility, we have many different ways of plugging our insights into our customers' workflows and into their platforms. So it's a much easier way to work with our customers. That's one thing I've learned over 30 years of being in agriculture. You have to be easy to work with your customers. The second is extensibility. That just means we can add capabilities, whether that's something that's coming from our own internal R&D or something from a customer's perspective. It's much easier to add that kind of functionality to the platform, which makes it more valuable to the customer. And then the last thing is automation. And this is very important because as we have more and more data coming at us with this new constellation, we have to automate the delivery of not just the data, but the analytics that are being delivered to our customers. So we really would be doing a disservice to our customers if we didn't redo the platform in order to take advantage of what the EarthDaily constellation has to offer. So that really, at the end of the day, it's going to allow us to deliver more data to more markets, more places, and we're really setting ourselves up to address some of agriculture's biggest needs, like regenerative agriculture, carbon, water, a lot of things that we focused on here at the Vision Conference. So, Andrew, that's
thanks, Dave,
of our platform.
Appreciate that. So Land O'Lakes has made a very large commitment to tech and agriculture. Teddy, can you tell me a little bit about your partnership as an organization with EarthDaily Agro, and really, more importantly, how Earth observation has benefited your customers and co-op owners?
Yeah, so it's been a long journey for us. We've been in remote sensing for quite some time, and I would say that Winfield United, which is the crop inputs division of Land O'Lakes, has been really part of this, been in this journey for about 10 years or so. And the idea started is we want to make more of data-driven, bring more data-driven insights to farmers to be able to make better decisions on the farm, to be more productive, to grow a bigger yield, and to really be able to monitor what's happening on their fields at any given time. And it's been an evolution, right, which has been exciting with some of the new EarthDaily Agro announcements that Dave is making right now, because that platform is evolving with our needs. We went from a time where we wanted farmers to, again, grow a bigger yield, right? So we need for them to see where the issues were on a field, be able to use remote sensing for that, to be able to look at images from previous years to make better decisions depending on what was happening with the weather this coming year. And we were successful with that. There was a lot of farmers that made good, timely decisions, and more intelligent decisions compared to just using intuition. Now the business is evolving from more to grow a bigger yield to have more of an ROI-focused approach to agriculture, right? So it's not about just growing the biggest crop, it's about growing the right crop, and it is incorporating sustainable and regenerative practices into what they're doing in a single day. So what does that mean? Well, now what they need is more, again, not maps, but math, as Dave mentioned earlier, right? So the idea is, okay, when is the time to be able to plant now, right? So we need more predictability around what is happening, and not necessarily just looking at a map, but when is a good time to plant? When is a good time to apply micronutrients to that field? So these are the types of observations and then predictability that those farmers are looking for. And the business now is also moving where we're providing subscriptions to farmers. So it's not really the farmers using it, it's also Winfield United and its retailers using these capabilities to be able to help them with the subscription they signed up, because it's also in our best interest to make sure that they live up to the expectations that we set for them. So it's exciting to see where this is evolving. We're evolving, and our business models are evolving with us, and Earth observations are becoming more and more kind of a part of a key component of the solutions we're offering in the market.
Thanks, Teddy. Turning our attention to another EarthDaily customer and partner, Fabricio, Traive is an emerging player in agriculture lending in South America. Can you talk a little bit about how satellite technology and Earth observation has been part of how Traive has decided to go to market to disrupt the lending industry in South America? Fabricio.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation to be here. I think it's a very important moment for the company, and it's always good to, like, as a partner, to be involved on this. It's also always good to hear from a partner that it's becoming better, bigger, and faster. So that's really good to hear, and congrats for everyone involved on this. So Traive is a US-based company, mostly focused in Brazil. And what we do here is really to partner with the input providers or input producers as well, to really make the whole credit process more fluid, okay? On a second step, what we do is to connect the receivables that we help to originate from these input providers. We help to assign these receivables to the capital markets. So it's really a way where we connect directly the farmers' needs through the input providers to the capital markets. A very fintech related approach, which is doing quite well in Brazil. And Geosys, and by the way, apologies, I will call Geosys for some time, I think. So like Geosys is a big partner on that in two main moments. So first we have to do the credit risk assessment and of course the credit risk decision. And this is where Geosys is one of the main providers of data. So we can embed this information into our systems, run in our models, and approve or reject the credits that are applied. In a second moment, and this is actually where Geosys is also very strong in Brazil already, is on the monitoring of the portfolio, right? So after the credits are approved, we use Geosys products also embedded in our platform to allow the input providers, so the creditors, to monitor their investments in real time and in a lot of details. So it's really a huge partnership for us, very important, allowing to unlock a lot of credits from the, let's call, non-financial lenders to the capital markets. And it's a pleasure to hear that the company is growing even bigger and getting even better. Congrats for that.
Thanks, Fabricio. Teddy, there are some pretty substantial changes happening in agriculture. You mentioned in your opening remarks the move to regenerative farming and sustainable practices, which isn't new, but it's evolving in a different way. And can you tell us a little bit about how Land O'Lakes is changing the way that you go to market to embrace this? And what role does Earth observation technology play in that for you?
Absolutely. When we look at sustainability and stewardship and regenerative ag, I mean, as mentioned, it's not new, right? It's been in place for quite some time. And being a farmer-owned cooperative, I can't tell you how many times I hear from farmers like, I care about the land, right? I care about the land. It's been in my family for generations. I want it to be in my family for generations. So, and I want to leave it in a better spot than I found it. So, the idea that that they want to do what right by the land and by the environment, that's pretty much in the DNA of a farmer. So, and they've always been forward around, putting practices like terraces or cover crops or things of that nature that really have helped that land be more productive and more sustainable over time. However, what's happening now is, there's been, what's interesting, we've come out of a time in which commodity prices were really tight, and now they're opening up a bit more, right? So what has happened now is farmers have the ability to invest a bit more into some newer equipment, newer practices, and maybe even to try things out, right? Because when things are tight, you sort of go back to the basics of what you know, and now things are opening up a little bit more. And as a cooperative, what we're trying to do is make sure that we bring what these investments, where they should go. How should you, what are some of the new things you can look for? Are there new sources of income you can go after? And what's super interesting and what's happening in these days is obviously there's a big focus on climate and making sure that we don't go up 1.5 degrees. If anything, we want to bring it down. And so a lot of companies, even outside of agriculture, have made the commitment to have reduced their greenhouse gas emissions by 50%, or even go to neutral by 2050. And so therefore, in sort of that journey, companies can do lots of things to offset their emissions, but they're also looking for ways to reduce their emissions, but they're looking also for ways to offset their emissions. And agriculture, and specifically even row crop production, is an area where farmers, if they put the right practices in place, which a lot of them have the opportunity to sequester more, specifically carbon, into the ground, and we'll get into even more nitrous oxide as we go forward. And that's now where there's a market for it. If a farmer can demonstrate that they've been able to sequester the carbon, they can get reimbursed for that carbon credit. And a lot of companies are starting to make offers like that, and a company we work with specifically is Microsoft. So we are starting to see that, and we want to make those opportunities available to those farmers. And now to the question of where do Earth observations come into play when you look at how do we create this market? Well, number one, how do we make sure that a farmer is qualified to even participate into the market, right? Identifying those farmers that have put those practices in place That's one easy way to certainly do an early identification. And whether that farmer reaches out to us and says, I'm interested, and we say, yeah, you qualify, or at least you pre-qualify, or whether we're the ones reaching out to them and saying, hey, by the way, there's an opportunity for you to participate into this new market. Earth observations can help us do that. You go further down where, once they start participating in the market, there's certain practices they have to put in place in addition to what they've already done. And then they have to continue maintaining those practices. And a lot of companies that are looking for those offsets now are also looking for, well, did you deliver on your commitment? And so we need to do the verification aspect of it. And again, Earth observations can be used to help with that verification in a much more rapid fashion, right? Because in one way is to get there, but in row crops and with millions and millions of acres, it's really hard to go field by field. So this is a good way to use Earth observations to do this. So that's just on the sort of sustainable regenerative side. But even the bigger opportunity in my mind is with our crop inputs group now, we have the ability to help that farmer through those stages as we just talked about, right? And so again, we go back to those looking at how the field's performing, what are the needs throughout the season, what are some of the predictable practices that we can talk to them about so we can look at what the outcome might be, helping them through the life cycle of that crop, and helping us help them manage the life cycle of that crop. That's going to be another big area where Earth observations are going to have a tremendous impact.
Thanks, Teddy. Fabricio, this one's for you. Traive recently closed a $17 million Series A funding round, I think on the larger side of what's been happening in Brazil for ag-related fintech. And can you talk to us a little bit about how you're positioned for success with this investment? And I believe you've even closed some since then. And what role does Earth observation play in that sort of success for you, Fabricio?
Yes. Well, this was a huge milestone that we just accomplished. It happened in the end of the last year, 2021, and that's a big validation of two things. One, the thesis, of course, the way that we are addressing the problem. And second, the problem, like the market in Brazil, the credit market in Brazil, and the insurance market in Brazil as well, is huge. And Brazil is one of the, if not the largest agricultural producer in the world. So very few people know that more than 50% of the credit needs in Brazil are not given by banks. They are sitting in the balance sheet of what I call non-financial lenders, which are the input providers and the input retailers overall. So what is the big opportunity there? What is happening in the market right now? The capital markets and the financial markets overall, they are seeing the huge opportunity, which is to step in and finance these farmers, right? This is happening with us. This is happening with other agri-fintechs as well. We have basically almost one agri-fintech per week popping up in Brazil, which is, again, to try to tackle a huge market that has this financing problem. Where Geosys and like Earth observation enters in this equation. The validation that I mentioned in the beginning about how we are solving this problem is really about bringing transparency about credit risk to the lenders. This is the biggest problem, right? It's not a lack of willingness to invest in agriculture, but the lack of understanding of the risks. And this is precisely where the algorithms and the data behind that, they enter into the equation. And being able to have access to this data from Geosys, from EarthDaily, and processing that and is splitting in such a way that the lenders can be can see very clear how their risk is split. This is exactly the way that they need to see this in order to invest more. So private capital is like flying to Brazil right now to invest for many other reasons as well, not only for the lack of credit, but also because of the sustainability problems. And the way that we are doing this is exactly to show the risks so we can attract this private capital to this market. The second component is to monitor. It's not only about approving and bringing the capital, but making sure that the capital will continue there, right? Credit is very difficult to manage, very difficult to really know what you're doing when you are not completely inside the agricultural market for a long time. That's why it's so few companies are in the sector, and that's why this funding round, which was the largest so far in agtechs in Brazil, happened. Big accomplishment.
Thanks, Fabricio. Don, can you tell us a little bit more about the broader vision of EarthDaily Analytics? You've certainly made a big bet in agriculture, but what are the other adjacencies on the horizon for EarthDaily Analytics?
Certainly, Andrew, thank you. We view the business as really having three elements. The first is the upstream element, or the satellite portion. The next is the midstream element, which is really the processing and be able to process at scale. And the third element is really the downstream, which is the analytics products and services, and whether that's our own analytics products or services or how we interface with others that have it, it's that element of the business. Unlike other Earth observation players, we're really not focused on the first upstream element. We have capability in the company that understands how to build satellites, how to design satellites, and how to specify satellites, but we don't build our own. That's really not where our intellectual property lies. It's really in the midstream, which is the processing, and the downstream, which is the analytics. So as company's strategy is really built around those latter two elements. And we think of it as sort of a hub and spoke methodology, where the hub is the data engine or the analytics ready data, which is generated through the processing midstream element. And then finally, the analytics. And today, as you point out, we are in agriculture. Going forward, back to that list of problems that we talked about, or I talked about when we first opened up, we see a lot of other opportunities in other verticals. And the trick there is, Earth observation generally and the value added side, very fragmented, is to pick verticals which are substantial enough to support an ongoing business, and where the synergies in particular with our data generation are there. So right now we see opportunities in defense and intelligence. We see opportunities in natural resource monitoring, and some of the discussions we're having with the governments of this world would bear that out. Perhaps the most exciting area is ESG, particularly as it pertains to monitoring and assurance. And we've just brought on board a gentleman who's a well-known academic and serial entrepreneur in the area of carbon trading. So we think that's probably the next vertical which we focus on growing internally.
Thanks, Don. We've received several questions from folks on the screencast. So I'm going to pivot to some of those questions. For those of you on the line who haven't submitted your question, now is the time. I'm going to start with Dustin at the Ag Radio Network. And his question for the panel is, how is this technology being made affordable for farmers of all sizes to take advantage of it? And I'm going to start with Teddy, because you probably have the broadest reach to that, and then maybe we'll go to Dave after that. So Teddy?
Yeah, so great question there. And part of it is, and we've had this conversation for a long time, and part of our pivot in our strategy was also that. In the past, we actually made the technology available to the retailers, and they were the ones that were paying for the imagery and the observations, and then they would incorporate it into their business model as they work with farmers, right? So either they offered it as part of their service, or they charged a fee for it, depending on how they go to market. And sometimes they would just have a sort of a subscription for the farmer to be able to do a variety of things for them, and this was incorporated into that. So what we saw there, though, was that it proved successful, and a lot of retailers leveraged it, but they didn't use it as much as they could have, right? So they were almost like leaving opportunities on the table. So what we needed to do was kind of work with them to define a little bit of a different business model, still going down the subscriptions piece, but really it was more around, can we offer a recipe for a farmer? Can we help them alleviate some of their risk right? So if they have an annual production, an average production in any given year, can we meet that average or can we exceed that average, right? So almost like a guarantee where we would say we would at least get you to that average. Anything above that, you get to reap those benefits. And if you go below the average, obviously we will reimburse you for the loss there. Now, that said, they would obviously pay to be part of this program, and they would also follow the recipe that we give them, which includes all the seed and crop protection and all the plant nutrition products that they need. So now when we put that sort of model in place together, then Earth observations become critical for not just the retailer or the farmer, they're also critical for us as we put the program together to monitor these fields and to make sure that they're reaching those averages or going above. Or if we're having somewhere where there's, obviously there's some things with weather and the environment that you cannot control, when we started having issues with that, how can we make sure that we mitigate as much as we can and we know where to focus our attention? We know when to send out an agronomist and do an assessment of the field, which part of the field. These are all things that Earth observations make possible because you're not just sitting back and sort of hoping for the best, but you can actually monitor what's happening. And then getting to more predictable, you can even push it a little bit further and to say if we want to have, go above that average and how much more above that average, is there a different type of discussion? Are there more inputs that can go in the field to be able to get to that? That's what some of the new capabilities are going to offer us as well. And you can imagine that the daily aspect of it here, not necessarily daily, but a more frequent basis, getting these insights and these signals becomes extremely critical because some of these decisions have to be made within a very short period of time. So that's sort of how it's being baked into a new model, and hopefully that answers the question.
Thanks, Teddy. Dave, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I would like to add just a couple of comments on that. So, EarthDaily Agro, we are a B2B business. So we don't sell directly to farmers, but we help those that do provide services and products to farmers. But I personally come from a multi-generational farm, so it's really difficult for me not to be focused on some type of value creation at the field, at the farm. So one of the things that I always think about when I'm thinking about making things affordable or valuable is, what is it that we're doing for our customers that enables them to have a better relationship with their customers? This is just a very basic, pragmatic view of things. So a couple of things we do. First of all, like we said, we use we're using best-in-class technology. So we're vertically integrated with our services from, let's just say, from constellation to cornfield. So that actually comes at a little bit of investment on our side, but it actually makes our ability to provide more favorable pricing and sort of cost effectiveness for our customers. So this is really something that's an investment on our side, but we know it has to be a fast service, it has to be affordable, and because we basically have a cloud-based system, that there's no touch really to the data at all. So this allows us to bring someone like Land O'Lakes or Traive services that'll be super valuable, but also I think priced according to that value.
Thanks, Dave. This next one I'm going to throw to Don. This comes from Krister at Special Space Service. How do you bridge the gap between Earth observation image data and then answering the customer's questions? And then the second part of it is, can you outline a little bit, Don, the timeline for the new constellation? So 2 parts. So how do you bridge the gap between EO, image data, and answering customers' questions? And tell us a little bit more about the timeline for the deployment of the constellation, Don. Did we lose Don? Oh.
He's muted. Sorry.
There he is. He's back. Thanks, Don.
So the first question goes back to the points I made previously, which are really the 2 elements of the business which we're focused on. One is the processing side, and the other is the downstream and the analytics side. In the processing side, the first answer is to make sure that the data set that's produced is extremely accurate and can be used with modern tools like machine learning or artificial intelligence. These are immense data files. Most of our customers are are interested in covering millions of square kilometers on a daily basis. So again, it's too unwieldy to look at data in a small format where you have to go in with people and normalize or correct that data source. So the first thing is we're creating a data set which is usable. The second is how do you interface with customers? And we have two different types of customers today. We've actually pre-sold some of the capacity on the satellite. We have customers, particularly in the government realm, which really wants the data set themselves. So this is somebody who says, give me the data. I have scientists, I have applications which I want to run. I understand how to interface with it. They're fairly sophisticated. There's others that just want the information out. And when you talk about delivering a data file on a daily basis in the cloud, that's a bit too much. So they want to be able to bring their application to our cloud and run it and walk away with the insight, or indeed ask us to write some of the machine learning code in order to determine the change that they're particularly focused on. And we think we can do that in an extremely economic way. Again, the processing is hands-off, so the data stream that we're going to be producing is going to be priced at well below what you get from anybody else in the industry today. And we're going to make the interface easy and effective for our customers to work with. In terms of the deployment, as I mentioned previously, we have 3 satellites which we expect to launch in July, or let's say the summer of 2023, and then the final 6, which will complete the 9 constellation, the baseline 9, by the 4th quarter of 2023, and then 1 which will lag as a spare, which will go up in early 2024, in a TBD launch at this point. We have placed the order for the 10th satellite, but we're not sure when we'll fly it. We have to talk to the insurance folks about that. So I think we should be able to hit the ground running with the full constellation being deployed by January of 2024 after everything is commissioned.
Okay, thanks, Don. Next question for our panelists comes from Matt Hopkins at Meister Media. And I'm going to start with Dave on this one, and then maybe flip it back over to Don. But can you really talk about how this new constellation will enhance capabilities in agriculture? So, how does it change from where our business is today, and now that we have this new constellation, how specifically does it benefit the agriculture market, Dave?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So it really, we use a lot of terms like fine and automated and frequent, and there's a lot of the tools that we use today to monitor crops or to look at events that happen in a field. The bringing of this data, bringing of EarthDaily data, which is analytics ready and daily and global, it'll make those tools even more valuable, more sensitive, maybe is the way to think about that. What it will also do is enable us to go deeper with certain types of things that we offer. So an example, so today we have ability to benchmark a couple of fields and say, this one's progressing faster than this one. And then that signals an agronomist to maybe go out and take a look at one or the other. So with this type of data and with our platform, now we can start to do that at a subfield level. So we can actually start to guide people, agronomists, farmers, people that are out there consulting, to go look not just at a field, say there's something wrong with this field, but it's actually the back corner of that field, which is the part that's changing more. So it doesn't get you to a level of diagnostic. You can't really diagnose what's going on in the field yet from a satellite, but we can get much finer in some of the information that we provide. Another place, maybe just in another type of market inside of agriculture, which is quite interesting, is thinking about commodities. So everybody wants the number, right? They all want the estimate of yield. What's corn going to be in the U.S.? What are soybeans going to do in Brazil? What's wheat going to do in Russia? And by having now, again, a much more let's say current data set. I mean, it's almost real time. and much higher resolution, we'll process that and deliver, that kind of information in a much quicker, more accurate way. So these are the types of things that the constellation and its quality of data, but also our platform and our ability to plug all that insights into our customers' workflows and platforms. Yeah, this is a great thing for our future.
Thanks, Dave. I heard the panel talk about how Earth observation, can measure and impact soil, water, carbon, weather, and then, this higher resolution will allow us to get into measuring some additional types of crops. Don, I'm going to broaden the question a little bit, and in addition to agriculture, the technology, allows EarthDaily Analytics to go into forestry and other adjacencies. Can you elaborate a little bit on, sort of Dave's comments about how the technology allows us to do different and other things than we can do today?
I mean, it's really about temporal consistency and quality. Today, if you're trying to monitor a broad area on a consistent, and again, a broad area, like 1 million square kilometers or millions of square kilometers, you're going to have to aggregate satellite sources. And that means taking data from various satellite systems. It all comes in with different quality. You've got to normalize it. You've got to put it together. And it's extremely difficult and extremely costly. And even when you do that, if back to the yield curve discussion, you really can't get the temporal consistency, which gives you the insight into where you are in that yield curve. You end up filling in gaps because you simply can't get them filled by existing satellite sources. So, we believe that with monitoring the Earth every day, there's just an endless amount of applications. You get into defense and intelligence, you get into tipping and queuing, where you look at larger objects to see if there's changes. You can look at camps in places where they shouldn't be, and you can see increased activity, and then you can send in the higher resolution satellite to look at the license plates of the cars that are coming and going. So in discussions with our customers, it's almost an endless list. We talked to one gentleman who was involved in measuring, for instance, residential build out in the United States, and we told them we could count roofs every day of every residential house that's under construction, or any residential house in the United States. And he was blown away by that, because today it's a much bigger undertaking when you're trying to measure residential construction, and involves a lot of folks in cars and other ways to view what's going on. So we think there's just a whole lot of applications here. Earth observation has traditionally been quite fragmented in value adds. So again, for us, we want to service everybody, but where we go ourselves in analytics, we'll look for the more robust verticals.
Next one is for Fabricio. As you're moving into the change of season and spring into summer, what is the outlook for the ag market in South America here as we turn into the season, Fabricio?
It depends on the region, right? In Brazil, we have basically we tend to divide into big regions: the south, so below São Paulo, and above São Paulo in our Midwest. And in the south region of Brazil, we haven't been having good news. So we have crop failures up to 90% in some of the states in the soybean production. In the Midwest, everything continues to be close to perfection as always. It's very difficult to see a lot of crop failures in the Midwest in Brazil. But it tends to be a difficult year for farmers in the south, especially with the inputs also increasing a lot in cost. We are seeing more than 100% increases in some inputs here. So yeah, challenging as always. I don't think that farmers never had an easy time. It's a difficult industry by nature. But in particular in the south region of Brazil, we are having challenging times for creditors, insurers, and of course farmers as well. Adding to the last question, by the way, one thing that is absolutely important, and it continues to be almost a holy grail in this market, is the crop identification, right? To be able to precisely identify which crops are being planted, growing, being harvested, when it's being effectively taken out of the ground. So that's an application that changes everything for agriculture. It's a big one.
Thanks, Fabricio. Next question from Meister Media. Teddy, this morning you delivered the keynote address to this conference and to these thought leaders in agriculture. Just to try to elevate the conversation a little bit, can you talk about some of the key themes that you delivered this morning? And you had some really strong insights about how the market's changing and some trends. So do you offer our media audience sort of a recap of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an exciting time for agriculture right now, and you know, with all the advancements in technology, but also with the sort of, like I see, at least in North America, the commodity prices being a bit higher, and farmers having a little bit more wiggle room now to do more things, right? And the conversation this morning was really, there's a lot more opportunities open to farmers beyond sort of the basic kind of transactions they have today, right? So there's actually an opportunity to not only gain market share or increase their production or be more profitable on a field, but we can actually grow the pie for the industry, right? And you know, with a lot of companies looking at their greenhouse gas emissions and looking to get to 50% reduction or a net or to a neutral spot, obviously they're doing lots of activities to be able to make those reductions happen, or to get to that sort of zero goal, zero net emission. But they're looking to offset in the process as well. And agriculture and forestry, and particularly agriculture and row crop production, is a great area where if those farmers that have been putting in those good good conservation practices in place can actually take advantage and say, look, I'm already doing it. I can actually sequester more carbon into the ground and help you offset where you are today. So that's one opportunity for farmers. Another one is, as you know, there's this whole push, especially downstream with CPG companies, and Land O'Lakes sort of being that farm to fork where you have that whole connection in the supply chain. We see where consumer demands are going, and there's companies that are offering products to consumers that are saying, you know, food can be used more as medicine going forward, kind of under the umbrella of precision nutrition. So they want, you know, grains and other ingredients to meet certain criteria. And now farmers have the ability, with some of the newer practices they're putting in place, to be able to meet those criteria. And for that sustainable grain that comes off the field, there's probably a higher premium that gets paid to those farmers for delivering on those promises. And with all that, and on top of all that, you could also, now all the climate issues that we're having and being able to stay between, you know, below that 1.5 degree increase, like they not only have a triple effect to be able to do the right thing, to not only do their part to be able to mitigate that, but they can also help others in that process, right? So with all this happening, I think there's a lot of opportunities for farmers. There's a lot of opportunities for companies along the spectrum, all the way from the beginning to the time in which, you know, food's delivered at the table. Or another area that we're hearing more and more is use of biofuels, and using corn and soybean in different ways. And there's, again, maybe a premium for that with sort of this green approach. And even from a fiber standpoint, right, which is kind of another area where production goes, there's many ways to be able to, folks are looking for sort of that transparency in the supply chain, eventually leading to traceability. So lots of different opportunities, but in that, obviously, new practices get put in place. You need new technologies that need to be put in place to be able to produce the data that's required to be able to, you know, bring that transparency, right? To be able to have that certification, to be able to demonstrate what has happened on the field and off the field. And so I think this idea of stewardship moves also from the field to stewardship of the data. And that's another shift and transition that we're seeing, where farmers, retailers, processors, even Earth observation companies, everyone has sort of now has to be in this process of generating good data, being good data stewards, helping farmers, helping those retailers that are on the ground, and really sort of opening up and unlocking these new opportunities. So that was the message this morning, was really, there's new opportunities, that's exciting. There's they did some demonstration of where these new opportunities are, but at the same time, we've got to be good stewards of the environment. We have to be good stewards of the data, and there's some barriers that we'll need to overcome, from interoperability to cybersecurity to broadband and labor issues along the way. But if we can overcome these and address all these things, I think the future for agriculture is very bright and very exciting.
Thanks, Ted. That was an excellent summary of the various aspects of agriculture. Last chance for the many media folks that we have out there on the cast to ask a question. Our panelists, have covered a lot of ground today. From input to co-op to farmer to lender to insurer to commodity trading to food companies. Various segments of how technology plays in Earth observation. So I think we covered a tremendous amount of topics today. So I want to thank our panelists. I'm turning to Tyler to see if we have any more questions that have come in. We don't. We're almost at time, and I want to thank all those that are out there on the simulcast today. I'd like to thank Teddy from Land O'Lakes for your participation, and Fabricio as well from Traive for your participation, and of course, Dave Gebhardt and Don Osborne. And I'll turn it over to Don for some closing remarks, and then we'll kind of put you on your way. So Don, over to you for closing remarks.
Well, I'd just like to, as you did, thank Teddy and Fabrizio for joining us today. It's great to have customers with us talking about the products that we build and how we go to market together. Appreciate that. And again, really excited about the rebranding of EarthDaily Agro and moving forward with the EarthDaily constellation and bring some new products and some new insights to the market shortly. So thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, that's a wrap. Thanks so much. And if anyone in the media would like a one-on-one with any of the executives here today, please reach out to us, and that'll be a wrap. Thanks for attending today.